Hey.
So we got a little clarity on that question before all the other kids join in.
Oh,
Tarun
sure.
says his wife is okay with it.
Okay, good. Well, I still need permission from mine, so I'll let her have a glass of wine first before
Okay,
I
so that
ask.
answers your question, Tarun. We're going to get back to you
Uh,
after a while. It's going to take a little time for him to convince a glass
yeah,
of wine won't do. I think
absolutely.
it'll be a bottle there.
Yes, yes.
So
It's all in. Yeah.
we'll just wait for some more guys to come on
Sure.
because we got cut off on this one. And all the guys who had questions out there, can you just repost those questions because I kind of missed them and they were in the last screen. So, okay, I think most of the guys are on. What was the question that we were at? We were at the question regarding the practice for a
Oh,
nine-year-old kid.
the 9-year-old.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
nine-year-old kid and how much practice time is required per week for them to play competitive golf.
Oh, I, I think that's a tough one because you have different 9-year-olds who can handle different things, right? Or different periods of time of concentration, and but for me, at 8 or 9, I don't really like to do too much sessions with them. I'd rather they played more, and they just came to see me as like a debrief, you know. So it's like, so if they come and see me, maybe it's just like once every 2 weeks, and it's after playing loads, playing in club tournaments, just playing around with their dad, and then just each time like telling me, hey, how did it go, and what shot do you want? So like every time they come, every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, we can kind of learn something new that they may have done, incorrectly or slightly weaker than what they would have liked, So then by the time that happens, they have enough time to kind of go away and enjoy it, and it's not overloaded. I just don't like this idea of kind of giving that much load to a 9-year-old developing mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'd rather stay out of the picture and only be in there as little as I can, And if some parents do send their 9 and 10-year-olds to me, but I'll tell them, listen, if they're coming in for training with me, we're not doing technicals. We might touch on it for 3 minutes, but the rest of the time I'm just trying to create an environment where I'm going to challenge them and I'm going to try and work on their skill sets, So if you're paying me this much money, I don't want you to think that you're going to get this much of information in return. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a station and just let that kid have fun, but at the same time, maybe instill like problem solving challenges, trying to maybe condition like a little bit of coping, introduction of like coping methods that they could have, so like giving them a little bit of stress, like, oh, if you miss this bucket and it doesn't go in, you're going to have to give me 10 press ups, and how do they cope with that? And just doing things like that. Like if that was the case, then fine. I can have them for 3 hours a week. That's no problems. But if parents kind of want me to give them the full kind of technical, I'll always kind of refuse and decline to do that. Because you don't need it. Personally, the golf course can teach that kid more than I could teach that kid at that age. So he only needs me really for like some of the statics and just for fun, really, and that's what I would say to that answer.
Right, good, perfect. And we have another one, quick one. This is where you're going to make some money. Thank you, sir. Just reposting a question, sir. Do you do remote sessions, coaching work, especially for kids who can't regularly make it to your destination?
Who's that? So,
Pooja, just
Pooja,
reposting.
okay.
Do remote sessions coaching work, especially for kids who can't regularly make it to the destination?
I think there's some merit to it, but I think I do want to see like the ball flight, right? I want to see how the club looks in your hands. I want to see what the ball flight's like. Like, I'll never be looking at like the person's body. I'll always be checking out the ball flight. I'll always be seeing how you hitting the 5-iron, how you hitting the driver, how you hitting the wedge. Oh, you're having trouble hitting driver? Well, so if you're having trouble hitting driver, maybe you're coming in a little bit too shallow. Oh, you might have trouble hitting, this club, and then we can kind of like always test it. But if you kind of just send me a video and I haven't really seen you in person yet and I don't know much about you, I can give you, like, from what my bias is, I can give you an analysis of it, right? But it doesn't mean you're going to get better, you know, because I have no idea what it is you want and what your ball flight's doing. So to that answer, it's probably yes and no. You know, the guys that I work with and the girls that I work with regularly, I already know what their blueprints are and I can already see it. Like if Chica sends me a swing, I already know, yeah, or I'm checking his grip. How's his left hand, you know? You know, and I'll be able to comment. But if it's someone new, it's a little bit tricky, and I probably wouldn't advise it.
So Pooja, that answers your question, that you obviously need to go see the coach once or twice or a few times before the coach can actually give you some work, you know, some catch-up work, and, you know, just to keep in touch in between lessons. But you still need to go to that coach once in a while.
Yeah.
I think that'll be the best thing to do. Okay, the next one which comes up is, what kind of practice would you suggest during this lockdown period?
Oh, that's a good question. I think to be honest with you, this is like the perfect time to gain a little bit of kinesthetic awareness, right? Like, you're not going to be hitting too many balls and you're going to be seeing the ball flight. So, you know, I would say, like, you know, go at it. Like, look in the mirror and look where you want the club to be, where you want your right arm to be, whatever it is that your coach is working on with you. I think now is the time to put the accelerator on and put your thinking cap on and think about the positions, you know, because we don't care about where the ball's going, right? Like, you're not going to see the ball flight through your bed sheet. So you may as well focus all of your attention on what your body's trying to do and what you want your body to do and where you want the club and where your coach wants your impacts to be. So I think it's a perfect time to be really, really technical and analytical at this time.
I agree, because I've been highly technical, highly process driven. You know, so everybody's kind of understanding their processes right now.
Yeah.
Because since there's no ball, that's the only thing that they can actually focus on. Because most of the time they are looking at the ball flight. Never are they on the range looking at what they're doing and how the grip should be and where the position on top should be. You know.
Yeah.
So this is the ideal time, like you said, for process oriented work, which is like working on what you should be doing, and as compared to just looking at the ball on the range, which is for the other time. I think this is a great time for this. And I think a lot of people do this, like, you know, a guy called Andreas Scully in Denmark. Okay, fine. Yeah. So he has, I think they shut down for most of the year, and 6 months of the year they're indoors. They do a lot of indoor work where the ball really doesn't fly that far. And I think if you see his golf swing, they all look very similar and they all follow the same processes because he has that much time, 20 to 25 hours a week with his kids, just to get that process driven in. You know,
you look at that in Korea as well, right? In South Korea.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, playing golf in South Korea is really expensive. Yeah. So they're all going to the driving ranges
indoors,
or the indoor simulators, and
that's right.
And that's why I think they can spend so much time doing that in there. And I think for me, there's nothing more aesthetically pleasing than seeing a really kind of nice swing, right? But the thing that really gets me going is the idiosyncratic swings. I mean, it's like a puzzle in my head. So anytime I see those swings, I love seeing someone be able to play amazing golf and be a slight outlier, you know? So I always tell, like, some of my students, you know, like, listen, you know, you see Dharma and he's got neck tilts like this because he's right eye dominant, right? And then Chico's the opposite. He moves off it because he's left eye dominant. All these traits, you know, that they have is kind of been kind of like accidentally probably instilled in them when they started hitting balls. It's just that they applied that 10,000 rule kind of straight away with what they had, and they just became uber efficient with that idiosyncratic move. And so for me, I always love seeing that. You know, I always say to people, like, you know, like you look at some of the crazy swings like Furyk, and you know, but you look at Furyk and you look at, you know, someone who swings it amazing, Danny Lee or whoever, you know, even though it looks drastically different, you still have principles in there that they both do. You know, whether it's you know, how the right arm works, how the right shoulder works, they all have the same range of motion principles, or the hips go into flexion in transition or whatever it is, but they just do it in a slightly different range of motion, you know?
Hello?
Hello? Yeah.
I just lost you. I lost you there for
Oh,
about the last 10
oh, sorry.
seconds.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So I was just saying, you see people who swing it a little bit strange, and then you see
right.
people who are classically good-looking swings. But in actual fact, they probably share the same principles, right? Like on how the body
Sure.
works, on transition, like how their hips go
How
into
the pressure
flexion,
is. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, how their shoulder goes like external or whatever it is. But they just
Yeah,
do it in a different range of motion. Um,
right.
in there, so it's I always love seeing those idiosyncratic
Right.
movements. It gets my puzzle brain kind of going. I love that stuff.
So, so Akash Modi is asking, what would be the right balance for range practice and on-course practice?
Yeah, for you, Akash, course, get off the range. We've done your swing. You hit the ball better than anyone I've seen, right? You just need to go out there and play golf, my friend, right?
But you need to talk to his dad and convince his dad first.
Yeah, right. That's it.
Captain Modi needs convincing
Yeah,
when he needs to get on
yeah,
the course.
yeah. I mean,
Otherwise,
listen, yeah, we've done your swing, Akash. You swing it amazing. Stop sending me your swings. They look amazing. Go and play. Learn how to play.
Here's
Yeah.
another one of yours. Jaikrit is asking you, do you think
Hmm.
college golf is the correct pathway for a junior golfer to turn pro?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I've seen evidence that suggests yes. I've seen evidence that suggests no. Um, to be honest with you, I don't think there's any surefire way at all. So I think for me, the guys and girls that from my side that we sent to college, they've wanted to go. They were really excited about going, and they maybe had a nice balance of education and golf as well in there, and they loved where they were going. They loved kind of the atmosphere of where they were visiting. Some people take to it, some people don't. Will it make you a better player? Well, will it make you an LPGA Tour player, a PGA Tour player? There's different examples on each side, right? So, I'd probably rephrase that question to you, and it's, do you want to play college golf? That's probably what I would say. If you know that answer, then do what you feel is best, right? But
That's
just
right.
remember, logistically, you're going to be away from your parents. You're going to have maybe new experiences over there, but just think about the logistics of it. You're going to be away from your parents, away from your close-knit kind of support system, and it's really up to you. And you can have all the evidence on both sides, but at the end of the day, it's down to you, Jay Crit.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah.
So, Jaikrit, you need to decide that you need to talk to a lot of people. You need to figure out what's happened. But if you're asking that if it is a surefire, definitely not, because not everybody who goes to college to play golf gets on the
Yep.
PGA Tour, But everybody who's a great golfer and might not even have gone to college can make it to the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
So there are lots of options. I mean, lots of examples for both. And if you actually do a study over there, why don't you take that as a project of yours and figure that out over the next 5 months or 4
Yeah.
months and see how many college golfers made it as compared to how many non-college golfers made it. And you'll have your
Yeah.
answer right there instead of asking around for people. Do this research yourself and you'll actually get that answer. And, you won't get an answer. You'll still get the numbers on the table so that you can take a decision. And like Laurence said, if your heart is set on playing college golf, go ahead. I mean, don't make this hard on yourself. If you like to go. I mean, but don't have unrealistic ambitions. I mean, thoughts that, if I go to college golf, I will become a PGA Tour player. No,
Yeah.
not necessary at all. So you got to figure this out for yourself. Take the
Yeah.
step if you have to, and we'll see where that leads you. Maybe it'll lead you to a great bank job. Maybe your
Yeah.
dad will be very happy.
That's true.
Or you play college golf, and your dad may not be as happy.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to decide that. But okay, so we see Anisha. Is that your name, Anisha Agarwal? Is it? We see a lot of parents being over-invested in their kids' game in a way that isn't conducive to a healthy working environment. Any advice for parents, the students, or the students to find the balance?
Oh, I think
Parents' advice.
parents is always a contentious kind of issue. The only thing I would say about parents, right, is that just remember they only have the best intentions for you. Okay, I've never met a parent who didn't have the best intentions for their child. It's just that sometimes what they think is kind of like the right way to handle situations is ironically not the best thing for the child, right, or for the person. So a lot of times when I see overbearing parents and parents that maybe because listen, parent participation is a must, right? Because parents are the ones that are going to be funding you. Parents are the ones that are going to be like driving you to certain places. They're going to be ones traveling with you. So you can't completely kind of like take them out of the equation, and you have to be very, very kind of grateful for what your parents do, right? But at the same time, I think sometimes you'll always have that kind of friction. And normally, in my experience, that friction of overbearing parents is a number of things. It's one, parents just don't realize that golf is a really tough game, right? It's a hard game. You can make the best swing and you can hit the best shot, and a gust of wind comes up and your ball's plugged in the bunker and you've made triple bogey. But parents can't see that who don't play golf. They say, "Oh, your bunker play is really bad. Why didn't you club properly?" And they just don't get that idea that golf is it's not like education. It's not like, hey, if I spend 6 hours a day for 3 years, I'm going to get my degree and it's going to be a first-class degree. In golf, it doesn't happen like that, right? And I think sometimes parents lose that kind of reality, where it's like, God, you hit so many balls and we take you for so many lessons and still you're shooting this much. What's wrong with you? And that's more of a misunderstanding of how difficult golf is, right? But also in the same way, I think it's important for parents to realize that, like, when someone's already shot like 85, right, they're already feeling pretty bad. That kid's already feeling pretty bad if he normally shoots like 75. He's already feeling bad. The last person he wants to be criticizing him, right, is the parent, is his support system. That's the last person he wants to be criticizing him. So in a way, I kind of try and tell parents that, listen, this whole thing of, you've paid this much money and you expect this result. You first have to understand that golf is a really tough game. And golf is a really hard game to be consistent with, And I always love pulling parents in and saying, what do you think the shot difference is from one round to another round in professional golfers? And they must all be shooting like 67s. And it's like you pull up like Rory McIlroy last year in the Open Championship, and he went 79, 64. Right?
Look at the difference.
You're like, look at that shot difference, and that's in one day.
That's right.
And I'm like, so how do you explain that from one of the best players in the world? And so once they understand that, like consistency isn't there, and what we're trying to do for your child, for your junior, for your players, we don't care about consistency. I only care about, are they getting better, right? Because if they're shooting like 85s consistently, you might be happy, but I'm not happy because they want to play college golf and they need to shoot like 72. So I need to see them shoot 85, but then have the ability to shoot 70, right? And then the next day they can go ahead and shoot 86 again. I don't care. But I need to see them getting better, and they need to see that as well. So bad rounds, bad scores, bad tournaments, no one's immune from it, right? You can't get an immunity pass for playing bad golf. Everyone plays bad golf. But what players need, and especially what juniors need, is they don't need parents to condition them into believing that when they play great golf, it's like, well done. And then when they play bad golf, it's like, what's wrong with you? Because you're just conditioning them to almost
to feel
like, you're almost conditioning them like, oh, my parents are only going to love me if I play well, and they're not going to like me if I play badly. And no one can play golf and expect to perform with that kind of loaded gun to their head, you know?
Right.
And I think when you put it across in that view, I think most people can kind of understand that and think, God, you're right, you know? Like, you know, and as a parent myself, I have an 8-year-old son, and I've been trying to teach him multiplication, right, for the last 3 weeks. And the amount of times I'm like, Oliver, we've just done this for like 6 hours. What is 2 times 2? And he says 5. And I feel like I just want to blow my head off, right? But I just know it's part of that process. It's part of that learning process. That failure is part of it, you know?
Right.
And, you know, 1 week later, you know, he already knows his 5 times table. So it's like, it's just that journey, and you just have to accept that journey and just, you know, try and be as supportive as you can. I hope that answers your question, Anisha.
I think it's not only her question. I think you've answered a lot of parents on this show. I think that's a great takeaway from that. I mean, that was pretty deep. Yeah, that was good. This thing about the same philosophy comes into the next question, which I'm going to get to you. It's a small little 9-year-old girl, but again, she needs to understand right now that that's the question that's going to hamper her ability to perform as well. How long should a 9-year-old hit her driver? So there you go.
God, you know, I to be honest with you, again, I don't know. You know, I wouldn't focus at that age of initially like trying to benchmark as to how far you're going to hit it, right? Because you're not going to get into your growth spurt yet. So the thing that I would probably be more focused on is your centeredness of contact with the driver. Listen, if you can hit the ball out the middle every single time, you're already consistently longer, right? Than so for example, if you hit the ball off the heel slightly, and then on the next one you hit the ball out the middle, there's probably going to be like a 20 to 30 yard difference, right? But if you hit the middle consistently, you're already consistently longer on average. I hope that kind of makes sense in there. So don't worry about how far you should hit it. Worry about whether you're hitting it out the middle is my advice to that 9-year-old.
Okay, another quick question from Tavleen in Calcutta. They say practice like you play. How can we achieve that and make practice sessions more efficient?
Oh, that's a great question. So a lot of my students will probably tell you that that's...
So she's asking that question.
Yeah. So a lot of my students will probably, you know, tell you that, well, one of the things that we always do is we always have to make sure that there has to be some kind of simulated environment when you're hitting balls on the range, right? Because it's very, very easy to get into that repetition of, you know, hitting 1,000 golf balls and feeling really confident. But the trouble is that, you know, on the golf course, you're going to be hitting driver, then there's like a 4-minute gap, and then you're going to be hitting 5-iron, you know, and then there's that gap. So in order to kind of practice how you want to play, I always tell people that, listen, you know, you've got your technicals to work on, but also you have to get into course fitness, right? So like in football, it's the same thing. So if you look at like the Premier League, if someone's been out injured for, I don't know, like 8 months, right? And they're nursing an injury, and then they're already back to full fitness, the coach isn't going to put that player in. Even though in training and stuff, he's been doing really well, and, you know, he can do everything really good. He's not going to put that player into his first match from injury straight away in a full-fledged match, because he isn't match fit. He may be physically fit, but he's not match fit. He needs a few games under his belt to kind of understand, oh my God, the speed of this. Oh, reading the central midfielder coming in. Oh my God, this is their tactic. Being able to read the game at that speed is what coaches are looking for in football. Now, if you transfer that into kind of like the golf environment where you've got the practice range, it's basically just like hitting a tennis ball against a wall, right? You know? And then when you go out on the golf course, it's like hitting against, you know, Roger Federer. So you've got to be able to kind of create that simulation on the range to the course. And there are tons and tons of ways that you can do that. I'll always refer my good friend Adam Young. You know, all of my ideas from that comes from Adam Young, and you can see it on his blog post if you go on Adam Young.
Adam Young Golf.
.com, yeah, Adam Young Golf. and you'll see loads of blog posts. His book, The Practice Manual, I don't get a percentage or commission, firstly. But, you know, he has tons and tons of games in there that you can do on the range to simulate that kind of practice, you know. So it's always a big thing that I try and get students to do, especially when they're going through like some swing changes as well. I always get them to do stuff on the course. So like, for instance, when like Colin came in, he struggled a little bit with some blocks to the right, but I could only see him for I think it was like 2 days or something, or 2 hours. And we kind of isolated like, hey, you know what, based off your idiosyncratic moves, because he tends to kind of, he has a little bit of a Ricky Fowler, right? And because of that movement, his right shoulder tends to drop, and then his neck tilts, and then everything becomes a little bit too under. So Colin's non-technical. So we gave him an image of like riding a motorbike to try and get his club face in a different position in the transition. But then it's a case of, oh, wow, this works really great on the range. It's like, yes, it does, but let's jump in a buggy and let's go on the golf course now. Let's see what happens when we've got water on the right. Let's see if this movement is going to work. You know, let's see if you can feel that, right?
Test it,
you know,
yeah.
let's, you know, and I always think that if you can test things on the course, I would always test things on the course. You know, the range, in my view, it's got its time and place, but the most work has to be done in an environment where you can actually feel like it's very simulated. So with Colin, it was like, okay, well, hit 4 shots and let's see if it works. And I guarantee you, you know, what made and broke his ball striking was basically what was going to happen on those first 2 shots after his lesson. You know, so I was in the background going, oh, please hit it good, please hit it good, please hit it, don't hit it in the water, don't hit it in the water. Because I know that if you can see it on the course and he knows that the water's right and he's just stuck it on the green and flagged it, I know he's going to have that confidence that, yeah, bloody hell, that really works. Then spending, you know, 1,000 balls on the range doing that movement. That one shot is equal, I think, to hundreds of shots on the range. So, yeah, hope that answers it. Yeah.
That's super, Lawrence. Okay, the last one before we go, because we're tied down after this last one. Okay, Lawrence, so this is the final question coming up for the day, and we're going to have you back maybe next week again, so that we can have some more time with these guys, yeah? So Alap is asking this question. Hi, sir. Is it better to practice at a... Oh, okay, he's asked this question in 2 parts, so let me just go to the part number 1. 1 sec. Bhanu Pratap, your question's been answered already about Dharma's neck tilt by Tarun. And he said he's got the... Tarun has said that he has the Indian nod already figured out. so Lawrence didn't...
That's a better answer. That's a better answer.
So here you go, Alap. Hi, sir. I'm going to ask my question through 2 comments because it's a big one. The first part, is it better to practice at a mediocre facility that is in your comfort zone and brings out the best in you, or is it better to practice in a facility that's really good but constantly putting you out of your comfort zone?
Oh, that's a great question. And I honestly think it depends on which kind of timeline you're in, right? You know, like if you're coming up to a tournament, I probably don't want you not feeling confident. Yeah. If you've got a load of time and you're okay with the frustrations, I'd probably say that. But, you know, you look at mediocre facilities, you know, the number 1 guy in the US amateur at the minute is a guy called Justin Suh, right? Who comes from the University of, I think, USC, you know. And if you look at their practice facilities, it is very mediocre. You know, this is the number 1 amateur in collegiate golf. And they practice on an American football pitch, you know, off a mat. And there are like 8 team members and they practice off that. And they have 1 green that's tucked away on the side of a football stadium. 1 green and 1 bunker. And that's a very mediocre practice facility. But what makes a practice facility is what you do on that practice facility. So the coach there is unbelievable with what he does to make it more engaging. So, you know, he'll always play different types of games with them when they're on that American football pitch. Who can drop it on the line, and each line is like 5 yards a piece, right? So I think for me, the practice facility obviously is very important, but it doesn't give you an excuse if you have a mediocre one to think that, yeah, that's why I'm not good, is because it's mediocre. I don't have the best practice facilities. You can always make of it what you want. In terms of when you want confidence and when you don't want confidence, I think it just depends on the periodization of which timeline you're in, you know, and what type of person you are, what type of, what type of trait you have as a personality. You know, are you the type of person that kind of needs to hit a lot of balls and needs to feel good? Or you're the type of person that's like, you know what, I don't care what happens today. I'm just going to go do it. So I think I'll always suggest something different based off that person. I hope that makes sense, Alap.
Yeah, I hope so, because you're right. Because, you know, I saw this program some time back also, something called the gold mine effect. I forget what it's called, what was it actually called, but they kind of identified, you know, where the Jamaican sprinters trained and where the Kenyan runners trained and where the Korean girls trained golf. And they want the topmost facilities in the world always, which made the players. They might have been even something, you know, the Jamaican sprint team to train on fields which had diesel lines, you know, like you said on the grass, that they had these lines getting the sand and the same diesel lines. You know, they burn a rope of diesel, and that's how they get those lines.
Yeah.
And so they used to run on tracks like that. And they won gold for Jamaica. So it's not that everything comes from the best facilities in the world. So it comes from all kinds of infrastructure. But on that note, you have a fantastic facility, I know, but you might be that outlier there because you're getting some great students in.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you.
But thank you so much for being on this tonight, and
my pleasure.
We're gonna have you back next week again, and I'm
I'll
gonna
be
book a time
delighted.
with you again. Yeah, super. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you, and stay safe, everybody.
That's right. In this time of crisis, just reach out to all the caddies in your golf clubs, all the guys, staff in their golf clubs, people who helped you out throughout. You know, maybe someone just that he's not going to be able to afford the kind of stuff that we are fortunate to have. But help them out, give them a call, send some money to them. You know, you'll be doing a great service for these people because not everybody has a lot of reserves, and especially golfers, you know, or people in the golf industry. We're not always making a lot of money. So just be considerate a bit to the guys who don't make so much, and reach out to them. They could be a teaching pro also who does a daily job, you know, and they could be on a range. I mean, you think that they have enough, but they don't. Trust me. They just work day to day. And I know a lot of these guys, and we're trying to help out. So just in case, guys, just reach out to everyone, and see you again tomorrow. Lawrence, you're going to come in next week again. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.